Chapter 456. Jian Wushuang displays his moves again. Jian Wushuang had remained at one side of the battlefield and not gotten involved all this time while the countless lords and experts from the two large camps were maniacally tearing at each other's throats. The battling lords had noticed his presence as well, but nobody bothered about him after seeing that he was only a Saint Realm expert. It's certainly rare to see so many lords battling against each other and displaying all sorts of skills. Jian Wushuang laughed mildly. Some of the skills being used by these lords were extremely odd and unorthodox, causing Jian Wushuang to be astounded. This was especially so for the recently arrived Myriad Islands lord. As soon as he came, he casually waved his hand to set up two formations which immediately turned the situation on the battlefield around. This skill was truly impressive. It was apparent at present that Drifting Blood Marquis camp had fallen into an absolute disadvantage on the battlefield. In the centermost of the battlefield, particularly, Loftinus Lord had gradually become unable to cope with the frenzied offensive of Demon Soul Lord. If he was killed, the Dao weapon would fall into the hands of Pale Moon Marquis camp at once. For good or bad, I'm a member of Drifting Blood Marquis camp. It's not my style to watch on from the sidelines. Jian Wushuang thought to himself, laughing. When he saw a figure on the battlefield, a faint and strange smile emerged at the corner of his mouth, following which his figure drifted forth toward the battlefield as well. On the battlefield. Swish! 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 A pitch-black spear shadow pierced forth like a flood dragon bursting out of the sea. The grey-robed weathered elder, Black Hill Lord's, expression was frosty as his eyes fixed upon his opponent, a novice lord from Drifting Blood Marquis camp. There are too many lords and too many people who are stronger than me on the battlefield. I have to be careful and make sure that nobody else is targeting me. While in the midst of battle, Black Hill Lord kept a vigilant eye on his surroundings. There were many intermediate and advanced lords among the more than 50 battling lords. Novice lords like him were the weakest participants on the battlefield, and naturally, their chances of defeat were very high. That was why he did not dare to loosen up one bit. Right at this moment, a soft wind-breaking sound was suddenly heard from behind Black Hill Lord's back, and it was accompanied by an icy gush of killing intent. The killing intent caused Black Hill Lord to instinctively turn his body over forcefully, only to see Jian Wushuang brandishing a long sword and thrusting it at his chest. The thrust was extremely fast and its angle of approach was tricky like none other. Had he reacted just a little slower, it would have easily perforated his chest. "It's you." Black Hill Lord glared at Jian Wushuang and recognized him. He had previously encountered Jian Wushuang right in this inner layer channel, and they even exchanged blows. The battle strength which the latter exerted back then had shocked him. Had a gold-armored puppet not appeared in time, it would have been uncertain whether he could escape alive. He twisted his body as soon as he saw Jian Wushuang's strike coming at him, causing the sword light to brush past his shoulders. "Your response is pretty fast, eh?" Jian Wushuang grinned. "What a close shave." Black Hill Lord heaved in silence, but suddenly, an inexplicable sense of danger rose from the bottom of his heart once again. Although Jian Wushuang's strike had missed, a beam of dazzling light was now gradually emerging from between his eyebrows. Jian Wushuang's glabella seemed to split apart at this moment. An absolutely terrifying sword essence surged forth like a streak of thunderbolt. It was the first-grade sword technique, Mind's Eye. It was performed by consolidating sword essence in one's heart before releasing at the crucial moment. The longer the time that the sword essence was consolidated, the more powerful it would be. The last time Jian Wushuang displayed the Mind's Eye sword technique was while he was in Nanyang continent, and that was nearly 4 years ago. Since then, his glabella had been continuously storing different types of sword essence, of which the one he was currently displaying was merely the weakest variation. Despite it being the weakest, Black Hill Lord was completely not in time to react when it shot forth. His throat was thus perforated by the sword shadow, and his body collapsed sapless to the ground. Black Hill Lord, dead. Although the fighting on the battlefield was exceptionally intense, there were not many lords who had fallen, and therefore every slain lord would garner a lot of attention. Black Hill Lord's death, too, attracted many eyeballs. "Another one is dead. Is that Black Hill Lord? He's just a novice lord, little wonder he's dead. The person who killed him." When it was discovered that the person who killed Black Hill Lord was Jian Wushuang, Everyone on the entire battlefield was astonished, and they began to look perplexedly at the swordsman. It was him? This fella? He was the one who killed Black Hill Lord? The facial expressions of the lords present turned odd involuntarily. Though they had noticed Jian Wushuang's presence earlier on, who would care about a Saint Realm expert when most of everyone else were lords? That was, until he killed a lord from Pale Moon Marquis camp. Swordsman, Iron Saber Lord and Silver Wing Lord were shocked too. They never imagined that Jian Wushuang would be capable of killing a lord. Though he had accomplished it via sneak attacks, it was nevertheless very impressive already. HMPH. When Myriad Island's Lord of Pale Moon Marquis camp saw what happened, he immediately grunted, "Kill that little one." A shrill wind-breaking sound was heard. Jian Wushuang saw a burly man appear beside him holding a saber and striking it at his brain. He judged from the man's aura that the latter was an intermediate lord. "Swordsman, fall back!" Iron Saber Lord shouted urgently. With a move of his body, Jian Wushuang left a residual shadow where he was standing while his real body shifted backward. He seemed very calm as he did so. "Everyone from Drifting Blood Marquis camp, get ready." Jian Wushuang lingered in the middle of a void while his powerful voice diffused throughout the battlefield. "Get ready? For what?" The experts from Drifting Blood Marquis camp were puzzled. But right at this moment, it was time for Jian Wushuang to display his true skill. An immense gush of killing intent soared like a tide from his body and immediately transformed into a winding blood river which extended outward. At the same time, immaterial sword realms burst forth rapidly from his body. After activating the Bloodfire Ring, the Bloodfire domain began to spread out as well. Road to the Underworld, Hundredfold Realm, and Bloodfire domain. The combination of these three realms caused the entire battlefield to be shrouded within a blood river in the blink of an eye. Jian Wushuang stood in the absolute middle of the blood river. His gaze, which was ice-cold and carried not a shred of emotion, swept across the crowd of experts. "Realms, suppress." A chilly cry was forcefully uttered from Jian Wushuang's mouth. Chapter 457. An Exceptional Saint Realm Expert. Like a giant pair of pliers clamping down hard on something, the blood river tumbled toward the lords of Pale Moon Marquis camp in no time. When the lords first saw the blood river appear, they felt somewhat astounded before the suppression took effect. Whoosh! At this moment, their bodies forcibly sank down, and the weaker ones among them nearly fell off their feet. Gosh! How is this possible? This is... The lords of Pale Moon Marquis's camp were stupefied. All they could feel at present was that an unfathomable strength was suppressing them, as if miring them deep. Their bodies were heavily locked down. What a frightening realm! The lords of Drifting Blood Marquis camp were also shocked. Though the blood river did not suppress them, they could perceive that its suppressive force was extremely strong. They thus cast bewildered looks toward Jian Wushuang. It was very difficult for them to imagine that such a frightening realm, which even advanced lords were being shackled by, could have been summoned by a Saint Realm expert whom they did not take seriously hitherto. Swordsman, Iron Saber Lord and Silver Wing Lord were astonished like never before. My goodness! Even I, an advanced lord, have suffered a strength reduction of nearly 30% due to this realm's suppressive force. Despite sinking into and being suppressed by the realm like the other lords, Myriad Island's lord revealed a face of outrage instead. He followed up by howling wildly, "Kill him, quick!" Swish! Swish! Two beams of flowing light shot explosively toward Jian Wushuang. Pale Moon Marquis lords were mindful of how strong the realms summoned by Jian Wushuang were, and how strong the realm's impact upon the battle situation was. If Jian Wushuang was not killed, the advantage which they had built up thanks to their two formations would most certainly crumble, and they might even fall into an absolute disadvantage. Therefore, as soon as they could, the two lords closest in distance to the swordsman went on him. They were both intermediate lords. 7 Luminaries Lord, protect the swordsman quickly. Iron Saber Lord shouted when he saw what was happening. 7 Luminaries Lord was the person from Drifting Blood Marquis contingent who was closest in distance to Jian Wushuang. He was also an intermediate lord. As soon as he heard Iron Saber Lord shouting, he sped toward the swordsman, but because he was unaccompanied and acted later than the two enemies, he did not have absolute confidence that he could intercept them. However, what he never imagined was that instead of retreating, Jian Wushuang would meet the two opposing lords head-on. Is he crazy? Seven Luminaries Lord was completely stunned. Swordsman. Iron Saber Lord was similarly taken aback. In fact, every lord on the battlefield was in disbelief, regardless of which camp they were from. A Saint Realm expert, being murderously charged at by two intermediate lords, would choose to meet them head-on instead of retreating? He has definitely gone mad. Drifting Blood Marquis lords could not help shaking their heads as if they had already foreseen what the result would be. Though everyone else believed that Jian Wushuang had gone completely mad, he remained extraordinarily calm. My battle strength is definitely no weaker than an intermediate lord's, and in fact, would be among their best. And with the realm's support, just two intermediate lords aren't enough to drive me back. A sparkle flashed in his eyes, and the two giant sword soul phantoms behind him rose. The triple kill sword in his hand knowingly emitted a heavy amount of sword essence. Streams of immense spiritual power gathered on his body, which was also packed with frightening muscular strength. Fixing his attention on the two intermediate lords, Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes and violently drew his sword. Second move of the heart-killing sword technique. With a simple thrust of the triple kill sword, he transformed it into a beam of lightning which pierced forth. It carried a resolute and tireless essence. The moment it appeared, heaven and earth seemed to move for it. Through Jian Wushuang's all-out exertion, the power of the technique all the more reached an unbelievable level. The two lords in front of Jian Wushuang also began to display their killing moves. One of them brandished a sledgehammer which struck ferociously like a giant mountain toward Jian Wushuang. The other person held a scarlet long sword. He raised both arms and slashed forth with an earth-splitting vigor. Both of them had also summoned their utmost strength. In a twinkling, the three different offensives, which were incomparably powerful, collided with each other in the void of the battlefield. Boom! A harsh roar was heard. Waves of residual energy swept in all directions from the spot where the offensives collided. After this exchange, Jian Wushuang retreated forcefully, and only came to a standstill a few dozen feet back. As for the two lords, they remained within the void and showed no signs of retreating. But suddenly, blarg! Blarg! The two lords spat blood from their mouths and their complexions turned ghastly pale at once. The sight of this caused the lords from both camps to be dumbfounded. It was already considered a miracle when Jian Wushuang killed a lord by using a skill of his Saint Realm level earlier on. However, that was achieved through a sneak attack and contained a measure of luck, and thus it was grudgingly acceptable to them. This time, Jian Wushuang had once again summoned those terrifying realms. It was normal for people of average strength to possess a few of such unique and powerful skills. For instance, Myriad Island's Lord was highly proficient and terrifyingly accomplished in the use of formations. Jian Wushuang's possession of such frightening realm techniques hence remained within the range of what they could accept. But how about now? This had been a head-on exchange. Jian Wushuang had alone confronted two intermediate lords. The result was that the two lords were beaten until they spat blood, whereas Jian Wushuang simply retreated unharmed. What did this say? Pust. The lords from both camps gasped. It was only at this moment that they understood that this Saint Realm expert was an exceptional one. That little fella. Silver Wing Lord revealed a look of utter disbelief. It should be known that, in the beginning, he had believed that Jian Wushuang was essentially seeking death by coming to the inner area. He also remembered that Jian Wushuang once told him that if he ever ran into trouble, Jian Wushuang himself might be able to help. Neither Silver Wing Lord nor Iron Saber Lord took these words seriously back then, but now. Chapter 458. Black Yuan Lord. This fella has inflicted heavy damage on two intermediate lords working together. His battle strength is stronger than mine. Silver Wing Lord heaved a sigh. Swordsman. Iron Saber Lord appeared beside Jian Wushuang and looked at him. Are you all right? I'm fine. Jian Wushuang laughed indifferently before he then said in an announcing voice, everyone, feel free to go fight against the enemies. I'll do my best to help you with my realms. Upon hearing this, the lords of Drifting Blood Marquis camp revealed expressions of pleasant surprise. Ha ha, let's go kill. Under such strong suppression by the realms, It's rather impressive that Pale Moon Marquis lords can still exert 7/10 of their battle strength, and aren't too afraid. HMPH. The realms of this swordsman, who is from our camp, is a notch stronger than Myriad Island's lords' 2 formations. Fight. The fighting began anew immediately. Because of the presence of Jian Wushuang's realms, the advantage which Drifting Blood Marquis's camp had was completely turned around this time. After all, when the full suppressive force of those realms was in effect, even advanced lords would have their strength reduced by more than 3/10, while the restrictions imposed on intermediate and novice lords was even greater than that. It could thus be said that the strength of the entire Pale Moon Marquis camp was greatly diminished. As for Myriad Island's lord, the 2 formations which he set up were, due to a lack of time, simpler and less powerful than usual. The boost which they provided to Pale Moon Marquis camp was far less than the suppression which Jian Wushuang's realms was causing to the lords. As a result, Pale Moon Marquis camp not only lost the advantage they previously had but now found themselves in a disadvantageous position. Take Demon Soul Lord, who was standing in the centermost of the battlefield, for instance. Previously, she was so close to defeating and killing Loftiness Lord, but because of Jian Wushuang's realms, her strength was restrained considerably, giving Loftiness Lord the chance to catch his breath. Moreover, an advanced lord from Drifting Blood Marquis camp came to partner Loftiness Lord, and she was thus no longer feared by the latter. Damn it, it's all because of that Saint Realm expert. Every one of the lords from Pale Moon Marquis camp was incensed like never before. They had never imagined that their originally comfortable advantage would be nullified by a small Saint Realm expert from the enemy side. They had never taken him seriously before. But now, Jian Wushuang had become key to the entire situation. Pale Moon Marquis camp had thought several times about killing him, but because he was being protected by Iron Saber Lord and another advanced lord from Drifting Blood Marquis camp, as well as because of his own exceptional battle strength, their attempts ended in failure each time. Right then, a black-robed figure emerged from a side channel and appeared on the battlefield. It sped immediately toward the centermost of the battlefield. There, Demon Soul Lord and Loftiness Lord were intensely engaged in a fight. They suddenly felt a shrill and powerful wind blowing at them. Who's this? Demon Soul Lord immediately turned and looked, only to find a fist filled with purple thunderbolts punching its way through the air directly toward her head. Although the terrifying fist had not struck her yet, its momentum alone caused palpitations in her, a superior lord's, heart. Without hesitation, she transformed into a ghost and quickly shifted backward. Boom! The giant fist struck powerfully onto the void, causing the latter to shake violently and forming a blast wave which swept out forcibly. The blast wave forced back 2 intermediate lords who were busy fighting by the side. When the gaseous wave dissipated, a black-robed figure gradually appeared on the battlefield. The entire battlefield quietened down upon the appearance of the black-robed figure. Many lords looked toward the new arriver. He dressed fully in black, had a head of messy purple hair, and kept an uneven mustache. His jet-black eyes were incomparably profound, and in the deepest region of his pupils circulated a streak of purple thunderbolt. Black Yuan Lord. Demon Soul Lord's countenance changed upon recognizing the arriver. Similarly, the expressions of the lords from Pale Moon Marquis camp turned unsightly. In contrast, the lords from Drifting Blood Marquis camp revealed joyful expressions upon seeing the man. Among the many lords from Drifting Blood Marquis camp, Black Yuan Lord was, in terms of strength, rated as one of the top 3 superior lords. It should be known that there were hundreds of lords under the command of Drifting Blood Marquis. Only a portion of them had come to seize back the cave mansion, and many were still on their way. There were thus only 1 or 2 superior lords of the Six Cloud realm in attendance from either camp. And among the superior lords who were present, Demon Soul Lord, who was from Pale Moon Marquis camp, was considered extremely powerful already. However, she was clearly a notch inferior to Black Yuan Lord. The latter possessed a matchlessly terrifying body which was recognized as the most powerful one in both camps combined. Even the bodies of Drifting Blood Marquis and Pale Moon Marquis themselves could probably not compare to his. And it was because of his powerful body that his battle strength was exceptionally terrifying. That's none other than Black Yuan Lord. Jian Wushuang was currently staring fixedly at him too. The former had heard of the latter while in Bei Mo Marquis cave mansion. The latter had, before that, collected 15 streaks of purple heaven thunderbolt from the universal thunderbolt pool in said cave mansion, and thereby developed his terrifying body. Rumor has it that Black Yuan Lord, who is considered to have the strongest body among the two large camps, had taken in 15 streaks of purple heaven thunderbolt from the universal thunderbolt pool, after which his body became comparable in power to a second-grade magic weapon. Subsequently, he was said to have obtained several opportunities which enhanced his body's strength to an entirely new level. I wonder whose body is stronger between him and me, Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. He had absolute confidence in his own body. His body was already comparable to a superior second-grade magic weapon. This was why, even as a Saint Realm expert, his power was on par with that of an intermediate lord. A powerful aura swept forth from Black Yuan Lord's body after he appeared. Loftiness Lord. He opened his mouth and spoke in a chilly voice. Black Yuan Lord. Loftiness Lord walked up to him donning a slightly respectful expression. Hand the Dao weapon to me, Black Yuan Lord said. Loftiness Lord nodded and, without hesitation, handed the blood-red spear he was holding to Black Yuan Lord. After he had received the weapon and while using it to fight against experts from Pale Moon Marquis camp, he was sent a message from Spirit Lord informing him to hand the Dao weapon to Black Yuan Lord upon the latter's arrival. Dao weapon. Clutching the blood-red spear in his hand, Black Yuan Lord weighed it and nodded to himself. Then, with a wave of his hand, he kept the blood-red spear into an interspatial ring. Chapter 459, Something Unforeseen. Black Yuan Lord only began to look around after doing all these. Demon Soul Lord. The latter was the first person he looked toward. His voice, which was broad and seemed to contain a special magical power, rang out on the battlefield. This Dao weapon is now in my hands. If you're not happy about that, come at me as you will. I'll be glad to entertain. After he finished speaking, the lords from Marquis Xianxia's camp could not but become silent, and their facial complexions became rather unsightly. They were well aware that if the Dao weapon was in Loftiness Lord's hands, they would have some hope of obtaining it by fighting. However, now that it had fallen into Black Yuan Lord's hands, they would have to kill him in order to obtain the weapon. However, not only was he extremely strong, but his body was acknowledged to be number one among both camps. Even if the two marquises personally worked together, they would not have absolute confidence about killing him. And without the marquises, they were utterly incapable of killing him, and naturally would not be able to take the weapon. Black Yuan Lord. Demon Soul Lord spoke, clenching her teeth. You ought to know that my Marquis considers the long spear to be a magic weapon. The Dao weapon you just received suits him perfectly. I know. Black Yuan Lord nodded slowly. I'll eventually pass this Dao weapon to Marquis Piaoxue. Your Marquis shall have to discuss it with him. Demon Soul Lord's face sank, and she said little else. The lords from Marquis Xianxia's camp were now gathered together. Although most of their attention was focused on Black Yuan Lord, some of them would look at Jian Wushuang from time to time. It's all because of that little fella. If not for his realms, we would certainly have killed Loftiness Lord and seized the Dao weapon before Black Yuan Lord arrived. It's the realm's fault. Lords from Marquis Xianxia's camp glared at Jian Wushuang with resentment. Marquis Piaoxue's camp had a different reaction. Ha ha, our young swordsman friend. Swordsman brother, your strength is truly outstanding. Many lords clustered beside Jian Wushuang. Every one of them treated him warmly and no longer put on the airs of a lord. After all, Jian Wushuang's use of strength during the battle had already proven that he was no weaker than a lord, though he was only a Saint Realm expert, and thus he naturally won the respect of every lord. Jian Wushuang laughed and acknowledged the warmth being shown by the lords. Suddenly, boom, the cave mansion, which had already quietened, abruptly began to tremor violently. The earth trembled and the mountains swayed. The entire cave mansion seemed as though it was going to cave in completely. What's going on? The lords from both camps frowned, revealing blank and puzzled looks. Even Black Yuan Lord was currently looking around in bewilderment. The entire cave mansion was shaking badly. Amidst the reactions of the lords, a large aura began to spread gradually. Though it was clearly still a considerable distance away from the lords, they were nonetheless horrified by its impending arrival. Furthermore, It spread upward at an astonishing speed such that it reached an entirely new height in only a short time. It pervaded the entire cave mansion, including the outer layer, causing experts in every corner of the cave mansion to feel its presence. The tremors gradually began to dissipate. Silence. The battlefield, where more than 50 lords and experts from the two large camps were gathered, fell into a dead silence. It took a while before some people began to talk. What exactly was that? What a widespread aura. Could it mean the creation of some treasure? Well, if this cave mansion even has a Dao weapon, then it's not surprising there are other treasures. The source of the aura is that way. Everyone looked toward the direction from which the aura originated. Let's go. Hurry up and get over there. Without any hesitation, the lords from both camps rushed in the direction of the aura's source. Black Yuan Lord and Demon Soul Lord also got moving. Swordsman and Silver Wing Lord, let's go too. Iron Saber Lord instructed. Jian Wushuang and Silver Wing Lord nodded earnestly and followed the crowd. Although the lords from the two camps had been fighting against each other just a while ago, they now had a tacit understanding to put a hold on the conflict. On the way toward the aura's source, Myriad Island's Lord walked up beside Demon Soul Lord. Demon Soul Lord. Myriad Island's Lord kept his voice low so that only the former could hear his words. What's the matter? She asked. He put on a rather serious expression. Demon Soul Lord, you should be able to tell that the current situation is extremely unfavorable to our camp. Yes, I can tell. She nodded. Prior to the arrival of Black Yuan Lord, Marquis Xianxia's camp was already at an absolute disadvantage in the tussle for the Dao weapon. After his arrival, the gap between the two camps only grew. All this is because of that Saint Realm fella named Swordsman. Demon Soul Lord's chilly eyes involuntarily looked toward Jian Wushuang. Yes, it's all because of him, Myriad Island's Lord muttered. His realm technique is very powerful, much more so than the formations which I set up temporarily. If he remains in Marquis Piaoshua's camp going forward, he'll be a huge problem for us in future tussles over treasures. Demon Soul Lord's expression turned solemn. They were not overly concerned with Jian Wushuang's strength. Even if it compared favorably to that of an advanced lord's, it would not mean much to either camp. However, his realm technique was truly something else. Such a level of realm technique was always going to be a problem for either camp if possessed by the opposing camp. Demon Soul Lord, your strength is currently the greatest among the lords of Marquis Xianxia's camp. I came to find you to tell you to kill the swordsman when there's an opportunity, Myriad Island's Lord said in an indifferent tone. You want me to kill the swordsman? Demon Soul Lord frowned. We may know that the swordsman is important, but so does Marquis Piaoshua's camp. They'll definitely do everything possible to protect him. Even if it's me trying, chances of success are slim. Don't worry and just do your best. It doesn't matter if you don't actually kill him. All you need to do is make Marquis Piaoshua's lords focus their attention on you. Leave the swordsman to me. Myriad Island's Lord assured confidently. Oh. Demon Soul Lord glanced astonishedly at Myriad Island's Lord and subsequently nodded in agreement. Chapter 460. Palace. The lords from both camps traced the aura to its source, which was not a far distance away. It turned out to be a lofty and massive palace. A palace? There's actually such a huge palace within this cave mansion? The aura originated from this palace. The lords arrived in front of the palace and raised their heads to examine the palace's exterior. The palace was completely covered in black and was incomparably massive. Within it was contained the unique and widespread aura. While this cave mansion is divided into an inner and outer layer, its real core is this palace, perhaps. Jian Wushuang mused. He was not the only person who thought so. The lords from both camps could tell that this palace was special and that there was a high chance it was the real core of the cave mansion. More importantly, if a Dao weapon could even be found in the inner layer, what could there be in the palace, as the absolute core of the cave mansion? Everyone became expectant. Enter. Black Yuan Lord waved his hand and was the first to head toward the gate of the palace. Without hesitation, the lords from both camps entered the gate and stepped into the palace one after another. The palace, decorated in gold and jade, was extremely spacious within. The most noticeable object was the towering stone pillars, which each required a dozen or so people to encircle, and on which were carved numerous patterns. There was also a large number of extravagant ornaments in the palace. "Look there, quick!" In compliance with the voice, everyone's eyes turned toward the direct front of the palace. A lofty throne was placed there, and on it sat an apparently middle-aged man who was draped in a blood-red cloak and had blood-red hair. His hands were clasped as he quietly sat upright on the throne with his eyes closed. He did not emit a trace of aura. In front of this middle-aged man with red hair stood 4 people who looked like sculptures. They were suited in purple golden armor and their hands firmly gripped huge sabers. However, their eyes were also closed. Puppet fighters. When the experts from both camps saw the man and the 4 sculptures in purple golden armor, they immediately knew that these were puppet fighters. By all probability, these were extremely powerful puppet fighters to boot. At the very least, they would be more powerful than the gold-armored puppets the lords had encountered in the inner layer. And it must be noted that the gold-armored puppets were already able to rival advanced lords. "Look at what's on their hands," a lord suddenly exclaimed. Everyone immediately looked at the palms of the puppet fighters. What they saw caused their pupils to constrict at once. A ring was worn on the left index finger of each of the 4 armored puppet fighters. Emitting a special energy wave, they were clearly interspatial rings. Yes, every one of the 4 puppet fighters was wearing an interspatial ring. Similarly, the middle-aged man with red hair wore an interspatial ring on his left index finger. Interspatial rings. The eyes of the lords from both camps began to scorch. Although the entire palace was extravagantly decorated, there were no treasures or opportunities within it except for these interspatial rings being worn by the puppet fighters. It was thus conceivable that the real treasure within the palace lied in those rings. As soon as this idea came to mind, the lords from both camps hurriedly moved nearer to the puppet fighters. However, before the lords could reach them, the eyes of the 4 puppet fighters simultaneously opened. Frosty and completely emotionless, they looked over at the lords. "Intruders! Kill!" The 4 puppet fighters simultaneously began to move after one of them uttered these words in a chilly voice. 4 beams of purple golden flowing light pierced through the void, while at the same time, 4 powerful auras began to spread. These 4 auras were each no weaker than that of a superior lord. As expected, the experts from both camps felt a sense of marvel but did not feel surprised when they saw the auras emitting from the puppet fighters. After all, the gold-armored puppets which they encountered in the inner layer were already comparable to advanced lords. It was obvious to them that these 4 golden-purple puppets would be even stronger than that, being situated in the palace which was clearly the core of the cave mansion no less. These 4 puppet fighters were on a par with superior lords. However, none of the lords imagined that the 4 puppet fighters would wave their hands as they moved. Swish! 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 Beams of golden flowing light shot out from their interspatial rings. Soon, gold-armored puppets filled the palace. Gold-armored puppets? The countenances of the lords changed. Reasonably speaking, the threat of gold-armored puppets was not as great as that of golden-purple puppets. However, an endless stream of gold-armored puppets emerged from the interspatial rings, such that in the blink of an eye, more than 50 of them appeared. This, including the 2 most powerful lords, Black Yuan Lord and Demon Soul Lord, the faces of every lord from both camps sank. To these 2 camps, there was nothing frightening about facing 4 golden-purple puppets, much as they had the battle strength of 4 superior lords. But now, with the addition of more than 50 gold-armored puppets, the lords would have to face the equivalent of more than 50 advanced lords. A lineup of 4 superior lords and more than 50 advanced lords was comfortably superior to the combined strength of the 2 camps. So many. Jian Wushuang's pupils constricted as well. He was increasingly feeling the terror of the cave mansion's owner. Next, he conceived a thought which caused a vast blood river to sweep forth immediately. A combination of his 3 realms suppressed forth. Under the suppression of the realms, the speed of the gold-armored puppets was obviously reduced by a notch, while the 4 golden-purple puppets were similarly affected. These realms are not bad indeed. Black Yuan Lord glanced at Jian Wushuang and at the same time ordered, Loftiness Lord and Iron Saber Lord, make sure you protect this fella. Yes. Loftiness Lord and Iron Saber Lord nodded and immediately appeared beside Jian Wushuang. The two of them understood the importance of Jian Wushuang to Marquis Piashua's camp. Everyone else, follow me to kill. Our camp must obtain at least 3 of the 4 interspatial rings. Black Yuan Lord's expression was frigid. Let's get moving.